Hey there, y'all. I was wanting to make I'm going to make probably 3 videos. I'm going to break this up. This video is for the final exam, the final packet tracer for this class, and it's a little different than some of the others, so I wanted to walk you guys through this. Okay, so if you scroll down in Netacad, we're already logged on to netacad.com and looking at my class. And down here at the bottom, you're going to see this SRWE Final Packet Tracer assignment. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And give it just a minute. Okay, so we have multiple attempts, no problem. I increased the time on this because, I don't know, you probably don't need 2 hours to finish this, but just in case. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and start. Now what's going to happen, instead of just bringing up a packet tracer, it's going to say, okay, are we ready to do this? All right, so we're going to go ahead, once we're ready, we're going to launch the packet tracer. And it's going to come up with this little screen here, open packet tracer executable, yes. And we're going to give it a minute. Okay, well, it took a minute, but eventually it opened. All right, so here we are. Now, first things first, before you do anything else, look over here at the VLAN table, and what you might want to do is like cut this and paste it into a Word document or something so that you can keep it handy while you're working, so you don't have to keep on scrolling back and forth. So VLAN table says we're going to have several VLANs here, VLANs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and those are going to be assigned to these different router sub interfaces. Okay, so we're going to be using that .1Q stuff. VLAN names are bikes, trikes, management, and then we're going to have a parking VLAN, and we know from previous labs that means that we're going to disable a bunch of our switch ports and assign them to the parking VLAN. And then our native VLAN for all these devices is going to be VLAN 6. Okay, so let's scroll down through our instructions. Okay, first things first, we're going to have to build the network. Okay, we've got all the equipment here that we're going to need, but it's not in place nor configured yet. So what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to place the equipment and wire it up. And then we'll get around to the configuration commands later on. All right, so according to our topology, we're supposed to have 1 router, 2 switches, and the switches are supposed to connect to PCs A and B, and we have to use these exact ports or else we're not going to get full credit on this. And plus some of our configuration commands may not work like we want them to. Okay, now you'll notice that there's 2 Ethernet connections between switch 1 and switch 2. So we know in advance that they're going to want us to create an Ether channel between those 2 devices. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and start putting these devices in place. Okay, over here on the shelf, we have PC A, PC B, router, switch 1, switch 2. So let's go ahead and put these guys in some kind of configuration that we can work with. Going to put our router over here. Going to put switch 1 underneath it. Switch 2 underneath that. I'm going to put PCA on the left, PCB on the right. Now we need to connect all these devices, and we know from previous experience that these switches have auto MDX, so we can just use straight through copper cables to connect all these devices. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug those guys in. Now up here, you see where there's a zoom function? This is going to be your friend because some of these ports are really hard to see. So let's zoom in and let's take a look at router R1, and we can see that gigabit port 001 is this top port and 000 is this bottom port. Okay, that's going to become important for us. Okay, and then on our switches, if we zoom in on the switch, we will see, scroll down a little bit. Okay, the way these ports are set up, you're going to have your odd numbered ports on top and your even numbered ports on bottom. Okay, now you can't get into the command line interface on any of these devices directly. You're going to have to go through a console cable. All right, and here's ports gigabit 1, gigabit 2. Looks like we don't need those for this configuration. Okay, so let's unzoom this guy a little bit. And your eyes are probably better than mine. I have to do a lot of zooming with these things. Let's go ahead and pick up a cable. Okay, and we're going to connect, it looks like we're going to connect 001 to port number 5. Let's see, that's 1, 3, 5. Click. Okay, now we've got that cabled up. Now we need to connect the two switches together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect port number 2 first. Okay, so we've got 2 connected to 2, and then we're going to connect 1 to 1. Okay, so that's done. So let's see, we've got the switches connected, we've got the router connected. It only plugs into one switch, that's good. Okay, PCA and PCB, now we need to connect those guys. And PCA looks like it needs to connect to S1 port 6. So let's grab this. And we're going to connect our fast Ethernet port to switch 1 port 6. That's port 8. May have to zoom this in. Port 6. There it goes. Okay, now PCB needs to connect. So let's go ahead and get our cable. PCB needs to connect to switch 2 port 18. There it is. Okay, good deal. Now we got to connect the console port on router 1 to the console port or the RS-232 port on PCA. You could use PCA or PCB. Okay, so here's our console port. Got it. And we're going to need a console cable. So let's grab one of these light blue console cables. Go back over to the router. Plug it in here. And then we're going to scroll down. And we're going to plug it in here. RS-232. Got it. Okay, now these devices are switched off by default. Your switches, they will come on automatically. They don't have a switch, they just stay on all the time. The router, you have to switch it on, and right here's the power switch. So let's go ahead and power switch that guy on. Now your PCs also need to be switched on, and right here's the power switch for those guys. Okay, now you will also need, now what I do sometimes is, like, I'll go ahead and plug in my console cable to the router, and I'll go ahead and do my router configuration. Then I'll unplug the console cable from the router and plug it into one of these switches, and because you're going to have to be doing configurations to switch 1 and switch 2, so I'll plug switch 1 into PCA and switch 2 into PCB whenever we get to that point. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and plug PCB into switch 2. I'm going to connect it there and then go back over. Okay, now you'll notice that on these switches, you're facing the front of the switch. There is no console port. So if you right click on the switch and then click on Inspect Rear. Okay, there's your console port. Plug it in there. Okay, so now we've got our console connections, and we don't have a console connection to switch 1, but when we get to the point that we need to do any kind of work on switch 1, we'll just grab this console port and move it down there. Or if you're working on the switches one at a time and not having to flip back and forth, then you can just go to the console port here and move it up to here using that same Inspect Rear, and there's going to be your console port for switch 1. Yeah, I know it. Okay, now that we've connected up PCA to our router, okay, so we can go to PCA, click on it, and then click on Terminal, and click on OK. All right, now we can get into our router. Whoops. That's better. Okay, now we're into the router, and we can configure that router. And then if we click over on PCB and open up our terminal, click. Okay, and as you can see, we are connected to switch 2. And so one of the first things we're going to have to do is we're going to change that host name, because that way whenever we're configuring our switches, we don't get confused about which one we're actually connected to. Okay, so that is it for this little video, and I will make another one where we configure the router.